Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the HR Power Hour. Every other Friday is when we do them. And today, the lovely Sarah is going to talk to you guys about making work from home work because, it might be okay for 2 weeks, but after 5 months, you might want to put some kind of plan together to make it work.
You have to
So,
kind of think about it.
yeah, it becomes that way. So take it away, Sarah, and I will watch for chat items. Please ask questions. Please don't hesitate. You just put them in the Q&A and we'll watch out for them.
Yeah, I definitely want to try to make this a little more interactive because, as Suzanne said, we thought, or I mean, I've been doing this for many years now, but for the people who it's new for, it was like, oh, we're gonna work from home for a couple of weeks and then go back to work, and here we are 5 months later, still working from home, and I know that it can trip people up because we didn't plan for this. We didn't plan physically, we didn't plan mentally, and so we really have to kind of stay motivated with what we're doing. And so, as Suzanne said, my name is Sarah Sporonsky. I am the principal consultant here at EOS Human Resources Consulting. And we work with our clients on mainly small businesses, people who are getting ready to hire employees or have a small staff of employees that need help with their HR, that aren't quite ready to have a full-time HR person on staff, but they need help with their HR, or they need some more strategic help as they're growing. And today I know we actually have a number of people from one of our clients on the phone today because we were going to try and do this presentation for them last week and we couldn't make it work. So for those of you who are employees of CoreFact, welcome to the call. And I want to try and make sure that people understand this is not just about people who are solo businesses or business owners, but also how the employee needs to be looking at this and thinking about this when they're setting up their workspace and things to help keep them motivated. Which is why, as we go through this, I want people to ask questions, and I want people to let us know if they're running into problems or things that are coming up for them that we can maybe troubleshoot and brainstorm on the spot a little bit. So the first thing I think it's really important to do is to have a place in your home that is your workspace, because we can't go from our house to work anymore and then leave the office and close the door or lock your desk or whatever you do at the end of your day in the office and come home. The work is still there. And so if you just work from wherever, then you're kind of mixing things in your brain. You're mixing things up in your brain. So if you're just working like laying on your bed, well, that's where you sleep. So now your brain is like, well, do I work here or do I sleep here? Or now we're trying to work, but we should be sleeping because we're in the bed. And so you really need to make sure that you're staying focused. And even when I first started consulting, it doesn't have to be like you have to have an office. I did not have an office when I first started consulting. I had the end of my table, and I had a little corner in my dining room and the end of my table, and that was my space, and that was my dedicated space. And I could get up and walk away from that space and say, okay, I'm done with work. And then it really kept it separate. And as things went on and progressed on, I actually, got an office and was able to close that door at the end of every day. But it's perfectly understandable that you're not going to have that kind of space. But you still need to make sure you can designate a physical area that, okay, when I'm going to sit here, I am going to be focused on work. And then if you have other people in your house, let them know that this is my workspace. When I'm sitting here, I am working, and so I need you to respect that and not interrupt me if I'm on the phone or anything like that. The other thing to consider is making sure that it's ergonomically set up correctly. You don't want, again, going back to the example of lying in your bed, that if if depending on how you're lying in your bed, that can hurt your back, your neck, your arms, your wrist, your shoulders, all of that because of being slunched over or not sitting correctly. And so make sure that you are setting up a space where you can sit down, you can have your feet planted, you can have your elbows and your wrists at a right place if you're working on a computer, and if you are kind of jerry rigging things, because maybe you are jerry rigging things right now and you're just trying to kind of make things work. But if you notice any kind of pain, stop and get up and stretch. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, because you don't want to end up hurting yourself while you're working from home. The next thing is to make sure you set your time and get up like you're going to work. Get up. If you normally would work out in the morning, set your alarm, work out, do whatever your normal routine is, take your shower, get dressed. And I'm not saying you have to dress up in, every day, but make sure you get out of your pajamas, at least. That would be good. And then get ready like you're going to the office, and stick to a schedule. And when I say stick to a schedule here, I don't actually, and we'll talk a little bit later, like, you don't necessarily have to have do an 8 to 5 schedule, unless, and I'll put the caveat in here because I do know that we have a number of employees on here, unless that's something that's required by your job. So if you have a job where you can have a little more flexibility, then talk to your boss and find out, okay, can I work from this time to this time and then take a break so I can take care of my kids, or just walk away, or do something and then come back and work from this time to this time. Again, you need to make sure you get the buy-in from your supervisor for that, but making sure that you are setting parameters around your schedule and setting your time so that you're not, so that you don't feel like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down and work for 5 more minutes, or I'm going to, I'm just gonna take one more call, or I'm gonna, answer one more email. It's like, nope, these are my hours. This is the time that I'm going to work. And then when I'm done, I can relax and go about what I want to do during the day. So I did a LinkedIn poll on this a couple of weeks ago about what were some of the things that people did to stay motivated while they're working. And a number of people said that it had to do with music. And the nice thing is that if you're not doing work where you have to, you either have to be on the phone all the time, or you have to, you're doing a lot of Zoom meetings or anything like that, you're not in the office anymore. So there's not going to be somebody there that's going to say, you have to turn down your music. Now is the opportunity, as long as it's not interfering with a meeting or a call or anything, you get to choose your music. And whether it's, classical music or it's, hard rap that you want to listen to, you now have the opportunity to do that. And it's really important to find music that can kind of melt into the background and keep you going, because that kind of pumping energy, and whether, again, it doesn't have to be pumping music, but whatever it is, it's going to give you more energy, and it's going to help with kind of those brain waves and keep things going on in the background, and keep it kind of give you a little more less resistance to the work, because music is helpful in helping you think. Again, you want to be careful. You don't want to get something that's too depressing music, or that is too distracting. But in general, whatever you find that you can be productive with, this is now a time that you can choose your own playlist. So make sure you're doing that. And sometimes sharing that playlist with other people is like, hey, this has got me jumping around. This has got me energized today. And so sharing that with your teammates, or sharing that with other people that you're working with online, can also be helpful. And then it's that reaching out and making sure that you're making that connection with people. So we talked about sticking to your regular hours, and along with sticking to regular hours, and again, it could be that you work, an 8 to 5 or a regular schedule, or it could be that, you've talked to your supervisor or you've talked to whoever you're working with and you've set up blocks of time that you can work. Uh, it's important to keep those boundaries. It's also important to take breaks. I will be honest, today was one of those days where I just needed a break. And I finished my morning meetings. And I said, okay, I need to get outside. Now, today probably wasn't the best day to be outside because it's 90 degrees out there, but it just gave me more energy. I could come back. I could be excited about getting on this call with you and talking about this rather than having the whole weight of the week bearing down on me. And so whether it's a longer break like that, or you just take a walk around the neighborhood, or you just get up and you stretch. I mean, sometimes you just need to give yourself some physical space, like actual physical space to open things up and make sure that you're not kind of crunched in on yourself. So taking a walk, stretching, reading a book. Social media, you want to be careful about. I highly discourage, unless it's part of your job, I discourage having that on in the background because then that becomes a distraction. But this might be a chance, like take a break and give yourself 5 minutes. Like let me just scroll through social media and set a timer and say, okay, I'm going to go 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I'm going to go through social media and like some things or comment on things, and then I'm going to go back to work. And that's okay, but just make sure that you're keeping your boundaries around that. All right, the dogs are excited today. All right, the next one is about staying focused. And like I said, turn off social media, turn off the TV. Most people cannot work with that in the background. If you do have children at home, try and make sure that you have given them time given them the time that they need so that you are getting them occupied with something, they're working on a project, and that they know where your boundaries are and that you need to work, and that when you're done with a certain amount of time that then they can interrupt you. And it may be something where, again, you need to train or teach them. Sorry, I'm thinking about training my dog right now. But teach your kids that this is now mommy or daddy's work time. This is my workspace. This is when I need to be productive. And when I walk away from this space, again, this is all about the boundary of that workspace, making sure that they know now it's okay to talk to you. Make sure that you set times that you're checking on them, give them certain tasks to do, just like you have metrics and things that are expected of you. Ask them to have things accomplished for you, and whether it's, I think now kids are starting back to school, or if it's something that's more fun and crafty, have them do something so that they're keeping occupied so that you can stay focused. Another thing that I use a lot, and that came up with a couple people when I did the poll on LinkedIn, is giving yourself a time limit, especially when it's something that you don't want to do. This is when you've got to write a report, you've got to write something, you've got to finish something up. Give yourself an amount of time that you need to stay focused on it. So either, and this is one of those things where you have to decide what works best for you. So it could be that you just have to work on it for 15 minutes. I'm going to work on this for 15 minutes. And a lot of times for me, when I've given myself that time limit, once you get into it, then you get into a flow. And then it's not so hard to continue on past that 15 minutes. Sometimes you're really struggling, and when you get to the 15 minutes, you need to put it down, and walk away and maybe come back later in the day to start to focus on that again. But making sure that you have that time that you're allotting an amount of time. On the other side of that is if it's a short thing. I mean, sometimes the easiest things seem like they're monumental in our head, and so we don't do them, and we end up fretting over them and not getting other things done on our task list and our to-do list because we never get that one thing done. And again, it's just that giving yourself 15-20 minutes to get this task done. And it's another thing that's called is eating the frog. You have to, it's not pleasant, it's not nice, but you got to do it. And once you do it, you can move on and start to really start to build momentum on your day and get motivated from there. And when you do complete those things, especially those things that are those frogs that we're just really struggling with, give yourself an award. Maybe it's an extra 5 minutes on social media. Maybe it's that you're going to take a walk and go down to Starbucks and treat yourself and get a Starbucks, or whatever works for you to as an incentive for yourself to get that thing done. Give yourself a little award so that you feel like, okay, now I've completed it, and now I'm going to move on, and now I can go on with the rest of my task list. The other thing that's important to do is to communicate with your colleagues. This is sometimes just hopping on a call, on a Zoom call, or if you use Teams or Slack or anything, any of these tools, just checking in with people and having a conversation with them that isn't just about work. And make sure that it's polite and friendly and encouraging. But this is, you don't have the people next to you anymore. And so we need to create that through the technology tools that we're being offered. And there's a lot of ones, like we use Teams here, we use Microsoft Teams, and it has a great feature that we can just call each other. We can call and hop on a video and share screens and do different things like that, as well as chatting with each other and keeping up on business related things. It gives us that opportunity to maintain that human contact and that personal touch. And take time, schedule some time for people, because it may be that you used to have lunch with people, or you used to go out for drinks with people after work, or you used to go and grab coffee with people. It's okay to still do those things and schedule that time when we're working from home. Just make it a virtual coffee meeting, or if you have time, or if you live nearby, maybe in the time of COVID, we have to be careful, but maybe you meet and you sit, you go into a park and you can talk in a park or go for a walk when you're off work. But it's important to make sure that you're keeping that contact and keeping that communication going with your colleagues to keep that building that bond with people. And probably one of the most important things is to take care of yourself. This time that we are in, specifically around working from home, is attached to so much stress. We're not just dealing with shifting from working in the office to working from home. We are dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with health issues. There's a lot of unrest in the world right now, and that's stressful for people. There's a lot of adjustments going on. If somebody within your family is affected in any way by what's going on, that adds even more stress. So there's the stress of, hey, it's happening, and then, hey, it's happening to me, can be even more stressful. And so it's really important to let people know if you need help. One of the drawbacks of working from home is that unless people are on video meetings all the time, they can't necessarily know or see that you might not be feeling well. And this is something, and if there are managers on the call, I highly recommend doing video conferences and doing regular meetings where you can see your people, because there have been times where I've called out people, or I've called people after a call and said, hey, are you okay? Because you didn't seem like yourself on that call. And so from the manager side, it's important to ask that question. But from the individual side, and this can be really hard to do, but you need to reach out because we are not as connected as we were before. If your company has one, look for an employee assistance program. These are programs that offer confidential services in terms of counseling or any kind of stress or therapy that might be going on, and counseling in terms of psychological counseling, but also financial or legal counseling or medical counseling as well. So there's a lot of things that are wrapped up in an employee assistance program. So if your company offers that, then please look into it and take advantage of that. If you are a business owner or a manager and your company doesn't offer that, see if you can look into adding that as a feature. It's a lot of times it's a service that's attached to a life insurance program or to or it can be a standalone program, and it's usually very reasonable expense. And be kind to yourself. I mean, this, like I said, this is a really hard time, and it's really easy for us to get to feel like we should be doing more, or we're not doing enough, or you know, why are we so bad? And we just need to remember that we need to have some self-compassion, and have compassion for other people as well. This is difficult for everybody. And as co-workers, it's important to support each other. And as managers, it's really important to work with the employees and help set up a program that will be effective and will work for everybody, so that you're actually getting what you need from the employees in terms of performance. And finally, just because we're, like I said, we have a lot of employees on the call, and this is for employees and for bosses, but make sure that you're getting buy-in from your boss. Make sure that your supervisor or your manager understands where you're struggling and what's going on, and together create a plan that will work. So if your your role is not one where you have to be in a seat for 8 hours a day at a desk or on the phone, you know, can there be something that's worked out so that work might be done within the allotted amount of time, but maybe not done within a normal 8 to 5 schedule. And whatever those metrics are that are decided between you and a supervisor, make sure that you meet those metrics. Or if you're having trouble, make sure that you go back to your boss and you discuss that with them. Because when you stop meeting metrics, you stop meeting the deadlines, and you're not communicating because there's something going on, that's when things start to fall apart with the employee-employer relationship. So this is really an opportunity for you as an employee to say, hey, this is what I need help with, and this is my idea, this is what I'd like to do, and then be willing to be flexible with your supervisor and with your boss to make sure that you're getting you're getting things set up so that you are successful and you are creating success for the company. So that is all I have today. Today was a short one, but a juicy one. So I would love to hear if there's any questions.
We don't have any at this time, but please, folks, just feel free to enter something in the Q&A and we can address it. So we have a question / comment. I feel like I'm constantly asking too many questions to my supervisor, and I hate feeling like a bother.
Um, you know, I think that a good supervisor would, well, I don't know who your supervisor is, so I don't want to say your supervisor is not good. But I think that it's important for a supervisor to be open to questions. And so if you feel like you're asking a lot of questions, and I'd like to hear, I'm wondering what type of questions you're asking. Like, are these questions specifically about your work and performance? And that's one thing where maybe you need more training. But if they're questions about, setting up a way to function remotely, that's going to take some trial and error. It's not. I mean, it took me probably 2 or 3 years of working from home to kind of really get into a rhythm, and that was me working from home full time and intentionally working from home. So this is going to take some time to really, set up things, and refine those processes. And so there may be questions. It may be that, okay, I want to try and do this, and you try it for 2 or 3 months, and then you realize, okay, that was a failed experiment, and we need to figure something else out. So don't. I don't think you should beat yourself up for asking questions, as long as when you're asking them, you're coming from maybe a place of having some ideas of how to fix things.
Great. And yeah, I just wanted to add one thing that I've noticed with some of our clients is that not every boss can handle managing people from home. And so their Slack messages sound weird, their email sounds weird. If they don't see all of your body language, they're kind of, their hands are tied. They don't know what to do. So it is going to be learning some new communication styles, and giving that person the benefit of the doubt, and just saying, if do you want me to bug you all day? Do you want me to text you? Do you want me to send you one email at the end of the day with everything? And just kind of get a feel for their preference, now that you can't just jump in their office and quick or shout across the
Yeah,
hall.
and that's a big thing, and we actually covered a lot of that on our Remote Strong series. So it really is a place of defining a drum beat and or a battle rhythm, and making sure that that the supervisor is kind of setting the example of, this is how much we're going to communicate, this is what I need you to communicate, this is when I need you to communicate this, and keeping to that rhythm. And once that rhythm is set, then everybody can kind of fall into that rhythm, and so that can be very helpful too.
Great. So we have another question. This listener says that they are offering their team the ability to take home their sit-stand desks and chairs from the office. And it's been a great way to help their team find a flow. Do you have any other thoughts of things that they could offer to help in this transition of, somebody said to me the other day, well, we were just told we were working from home until March 31st of 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's important to remember that when employees are working from home, they're still covered under the employer's workers' comp carrier and workers' comp plan, which means that, if they were to injure themselves, which is why I was talking about ergonomics earlier, if they were to injure themselves, especially on a repetitive stress injury, that could be held, the company could be held responsible for that. So yes, anything where you are giving tools from the company to the employee that is going to help them in terms of setting up their workstation, whether it's a desk or a computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop. I know in some ways there's the fear of, oh, well, we're investing this money and will we be able to get that back? But that investment is much less than having somebody hurt themselves working from home because they're working on some weird little, little stand, and they can't really they can't really work effectively and without harming themselves. So yeah, I think it's great that you guys had them take their or are providing the work. Sorry, it's the end of the day on a Friday, and I'm having trouble getting the words out. It's great that you had them take the workstations home or provide them with the workstations, because that is a great tool to allow them to stay safe.
Yes, and not every company can afford to have you say, okay, just buy your own stand-up desk and put it at home. And so, and obviously not a lot of companies are doing great right this moment. So you want to be creative in ways that you can help your employees, to the point where I understand that a lot of our clients especially can't buy the things that their employees want, but I think giving them an opportunity to grab something, and sometimes as an employee, you need to decide, look, am I going to invest in this, especially because it's going to be another 9 months. I know my company won't buy it for me, but it's still a good investment in me and my work.
And you're right, and in your well-being and in your motivation to stay focused, and so that's very important as well.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? I had a question for you about, you talked about maybe doing like a virtual coffee or whatever, but when you're working from home, do you have to work from home? Like, could you be in a situation where you want to go to the beach for the day, so you work, or you want to go to the grocery store and you got to sit in the car and wait while something happens? How do you feel about being so mobile and being able to work anywhere?
This is something that would depend on the position, because, right, the type of work we do, it could probably be done from anywhere. And I've definitely taken phone calls in my car, and I've actually sat in my car. I have a little steering wheel desk so that I can put my laptop on my steering wheel and type away. But
That sounds really dangerous, partially illegal.
not while I'm driving, while I'm
Oh,
no,
good. I just want
no.
good to clarify.
Yes, no, only while I'm parked, only while I'm parked. But it's important if the job is one where you have to be on the phone all the time, you need to make sure you're in a quiet space. I realized pretty early on that sitting in Starbucks was not going to be conducive to taking phone calls. In fact, I think I remember once at one point I was trying to do a phone call, and I asked the person, one of the baristas, to turn the music down, and I swear to God they turned it up. And so I was like, okay, no more phone calls in Starbucks. But if what you're working on allows you that flexibility where you can work from anywhere, I know people who are, it doesn't matter if they're in their home. Maybe they rented a place in Tahoe, and so they're working from Tahoe. As long as you have good enough internet and you have cell signal and you can take those calls, you really can work from anywhere.
Yeah, yes, that's a cool part of it. We have a question about, do you keep a daily schedule of work to be done? And I'll just pipe in here. Yes, I have several schedules located in several different places because I'll miss one. So I know it sounds redundant, but for me, I need something that's electronic. I need something that will ping me. I need to write it down on a list because then I remember better. So yeah, I don't think I could ever stop doing that. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the perfect example of, you have to figure out what works for you. I have a schedule. I live by my calendar, so I try to put everything on my calendar, and I try to block things off for the day. We also use Asana as our taskmaster. It is, and so I have a list that's just my tasks, just things that I have to get done. And the nice thing with that is that I can rearrange things and move things around so that I can reprioritize things and kind of check through the tasks that need to be completed. So yeah, definitely great question. It you need to be able to stay focused, but you also need to know what you're supposed to be focused on. So.
For sure. We have another question, which is a great question. All these questions are great. You're supposed to say that. Great question. I get that. So it's funny, like great question. Um, this is a good question. And this is a hard question for me to answer. Do you think you do the same amount of work from home that you would do if you were working in the office? And I think this person's speaking about quantity.
Yes, I think that I personally am more focused at home. And because when I'm in an office, um, the last time I worked in an office, I would joke that I couldn't get any work done until everybody had left for the day. And I would end up being there, for 2 or 3 hours after everybody left because people were interrupting me and were needing my time. But depending on the role, I think when you are basing things on the outcome rather than on time and seats, then you can be much more effective and much more efficient and much more productive when you're working at home, because maybe you're not sitting in your seat for 8 hours straight, but you're sitting in it in chunks that your body has a better rhythm with. So maybe you're working on a project for a couple hours, you get up, you run an errand, you do whatever you need to do. You have that flexibility to move around, and then you can come back and refocus on that. And that whole time that you're working is truly work time.
Yes, and I think the hardest part for me is traditionally an HR person needs to be in person at work. And so it depends on the stage of your career, quite honestly. I mean, when I was at work as an HR person, man, I mean, constant interruptions. So at home, I don't have those, but then I don't have the people feel anymore, which I am fine with. but not everyone is. And some people don't thrive unless they have that commotion around them and the excitement. So
Yeah.
that's
Again, working from home. As an introvert, I'm all over it. I'm like, this is great. I can focus. You can leave me alone. But some people who they need to hear that buzz behind them, and it's kind of like the baseball games now, and they have sort of the canned in noise behind it, and it's like you need to have that buzz. You need to like feel like you're there to have the energy, and that's why having things like music or some other kind of noise behind you, because it can get really quiet if you are home alone. It can get really quiet if you're just sitting there working. So you do need to have something that's not distracting, but that's that kind of white noise that will keep you motivated and keep you going.
yes, and to get a little bit of silence is so enjoyable for me. So it's music to my ears. We have another question. If you've been working from home for a long time and you're going to continue to work or continue to work from home for a long time, is asking for a raise still okay to do?
So asking for a raise should generally be put into the perspective um, of increasing your benefit to the company. So you want to look for ways that you're producing more. I mean, in kind of using the example we just said, to if you were to make 50 widgets while you were in the office, because there were all these other distractions. But now working from home, when you can really truly focus, you can now make 100 widgets in the same amount of work time. Then it might be something where you could say, look, I've increased by this amount that I am productive for, that I'm offering production for the company. So in that case, if either whether you're increasing your production or if you are increasing your knowledge and ways that you can help the company, then those are ways that you can ask for more money. Just working from home, I don't think is necessarily a reason to be eligible for a raise.
Yes, I think they mean it's almost the opposite. So there's definitely folks out there, there are definitely folks out there who still have this stigma on working from home. Bosses that are like, they're just goofing off all day and they can't get past it.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see that being an issue. You'd have to truly be able to be very concrete with your production and be able to show I've met all of these goals. And that's why back when we were talking before, if goals aren't clear or they're not set, they must be, because
Yeah.
you won't be able to ask for a raise because you won't be able to show that you did anything that went above and beyond.
Right, and again, it's changing the perception from a manager or an employer standpoint of time in seats versus productivity, and there really has to be a shift for the manager to understand that it's not about somebody sitting at their desk for 8 hours a day. It's about what kind of output they can do, and having goals and having metrics. Those are key ways that an employee can show, yes, I'm meeting, you asked me to do this, and this is what I have accomplished.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions? I'll see if I have any in my brain. Because I am new to working from home and I never thought that I would like it. Never. And it's great.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on your role. It depends on where you're at and where you're at in life. I love working from home, but I do not like having my children home 24 hours a day. That's a big difference.
Yeah,
So
that's a very different, and I know a lot of people who were working, were working from home, and now they're working from home with their children, and that's very different. And that's
yeah.
why I said there has to be some compassion around that, because this is when I would talk about working from home a year ago, this is not what I was talking about. This is a very different thing, where not only are you possibly working from home, but you're also homeschooling somebody. And that's very different, but it can be really good, and I found myself way more productive once I was working from home, because there wasn't the interruptions, and I could work at my rhythm.
Yes, and one of our listeners said that he or she loves it because they do get more done. And for me, I guess I absolutely get more work done at home, but I also still need the structure. So I start work at a certain time every day. It goes back to your presentation. It's not just like, okay, I'll work now. I mean, I still need the structure of some
Yeah.
kind, and that,
Yeah.
because if I just kind of like, well, should I work now or what? Maybe I'll work later. No. And yeah, I have to have that.
Well,
And my
and
children do actually.
and the other thing, I think for both you and and I'm sure there's other people kind of as crazy as we are, but in some ways, if we didn't have that structure, we wouldn't stop working. So there's some people that are just like, they can't get motivated to work, and there's other people that they just keep going and going and going, and it's like, okay, I need to walk away from the desk now. And once I walk away, then I shut it off. And so, yeah, whatever end of the spectrum you're on, it's okay, because there's lots of other people on that end and somewhere in the middle, but you have to find how to manage that boundary for yourself.
Yes, great. We have another question. How often should you check in with your manager?
That is a great question. They're all good questions, but that is a great question. And that actually kind of goes back to what I was saying about setting a cadence or setting a drumbeat with your manager in terms of what that expectation is, because a lot of it depends on what you're working on. A lot of it depends on what your how transparent things are. So if you have a really great way of communicating, like some people, we're working on this, but we haven't quite gotten there with Asana, but there's some companies where everything is within a system like Asana, or everything is documented in a CRM. And if that's done correctly, then a manager could possibly just go into that system and be able to say, oh, I can see what Jane is doing. They're doing X, Y, and Z, and they have accomplished these things. And so when it comes to checking in with your manager, it might be that you do a once a week check-in, kind of a one-on-one touch point with them. But if you're struggling and you need help, especially if you need help staying motivated, maybe you set yourself up so that you do check in with your manager on a daily basis, so that you can just say, okay, these are the things that I'm going to get done today, almost as an accountability, so that you're saying it to them and they can hold you accountable for that. So I think it's that good old legal answer of it depends, but I think you really have to fine tune that with your boss, and I really encourage people to have a conversation with their supervisors and their boss, because this is not a one size fits all. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to find a rhythm. We're going to find a system that works, but you have to do it together.
Yes, I think that's great. I have been in situations where it's backfired asking for a daily check-in because it makes you look like you don't know what you're doing. I do want to point that out. But for me, if I didn't think I was having the appropriate amount of checking in, then I would say something and then kind of bring it up myself to be like, can we schedule a weekly call, maybe bi-weekly, if your manager's not doing that for you. And that might be part of that, not being sure how to manage people when they're not in front of you and you can't like have a meeting with them. So I think that's important to let somebody know what your needs are, within reason. And some folks need more connection than others on a regular basis, and I think that's great, but some people might think that's a little bit much.
Yeah, and it's important to ask your supervisor in a way that it's for everybody's benefit. So it's not that you're checking in with them every day because you need their help, and maybe you check in, with the example I was using of having an accountability person. Maybe it's not your supervisor you're checking in with if you don't feel safe with that. Maybe it's somebody else that you work with. But yeah, again, I just would encourage any manager who is on the call, if they have not watched the Remote Strong series, I encourage you to do that. We Laura Renner from Freedom Makers and I really tore apart managing a remote team, and some of the tools that you can use to do that. And I think it might be really helpful to people who are new to managing a remote team.
Great, and we don't have any other questions right this moment. But I think we've had some great ones, and I appreciate that everyone has asked them, because this is a great time. And even if we don't have the answer, it's a good way for us to have a dialogue about what is the right thing to do, because there isn't, this is unprecedented. So there's not a book on how to do it.
That is my least favorite word of 2020. It's unprecedented. But it's true, and there is there's a lot of guidebooks out there, but there is no rule book. There's we're all just kind of making this up as we go, and we're all human, which means that we are all very different, and we're all social creatures, which means that we need to have that connection with people on some level. Where you are on the spectrum of that level is going to be different for you, but we do need to make sure that we're building this new way of working in a way that is effective and that everybody can prosper in. So thank you so much for joining us today. As always, if you have any other questions or you didn't feel like you were comfortable asking any question while we were on the call today, I invite you to email us at hr@eoshr.com, or you can call us, or you can check out our website. And all of our past HR Power Hours, as well as the Remote Strong series, are also on our YouTube site. So you can go and check that out as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.